The human mind is not silent. It flows, hides, and speaks in symbols. Sigmund Freud was the first to truly listen. Sigmund Freud was one of the most influential thinkers of the modern era, widely recognized as the founder of psychoanalysis. Born in 1856 in Freiburg, Austria, Freud lived during a period when the human mind was still largely understood. Through philosophy and basic medical observation, his work radically changed this perspective by proposing that human behavior is not driven solely by reason or conscious intention, but by hidden mental processes operating beneath awareness. Freud began his career as a physician, specializing in neurology, while studying patients suffering from hysteria and unexplained psychological symptoms. He noticed that many disorders could not be traced to physical causes alone. This observation led him to explore the inner life of the mind. He proposed that thoughts, emotions, and memories could exist outside conscious awareness while still influencing behavior. This hidden mental realm became known as the unconscious mind. According to Freud, the unconscious stores repressed experiences, forbidden desires, unresolved conflicts, and emotional wounds. These elements do not disappear simply because they are ignored. Instead, they shape behavior indirectly, emerging through dreams, slips of the tongue, anxiety, and compulsive actions. Freud believed that understanding the unconscious was essential for understanding the self. To access this hidden domain, Freud developed new methods of psychological exploration. One of the most important was free association, a technique that encouraged individuals to speak freely without censorship. By allowing thoughts to flow naturally, Freud believed that the structure of the unconscious could reveal itself. He also placed great importance on dreams, viewing them as symbolic expressions of unconscious desires. Through these ideas, Freud introduced a revolutionary way of thinking about the mind as a dynamic system rather than a static entity. As Freud's work evolved, he developed a detailed model of how the human psyche functions. One of his most famous contributions was the structural model of personality, which divided the mind into three interacting components: the ID, the ego, and the superego. This model was designed to explain internal conflict and psychological tension. The ID represents the most primitive part of the mind. It is entirely unconscious and driven by instinctual desires such as hunger, pleasure, and aggression. The ID operates according to the pleasure principle, demanding immediate satisfaction without regard for consequences or morality. In contrast, the ego develops as the rational mediator between instinct and reality. Guided by the reality principle, the ego negotiates between the demands of the ID and the constraints of the external world. The superego represents internalized moral standards and social values. It functions as a conscience, judging thoughts and actions according to learned rules of right and wrong. When the ego fails to meet these standards, feelings of guilt and shame may arise. The constant tension between these three forces shapes personality and behavior throughout life. Freud also introduced the concept of defense mechanisms, unconscious strategies used by the ego to manage anxiety. Repression, denial, projection, and sublimation are examples of how the mind protects itself from psychological distress. In addition, Freud proposed the theory of psychosexual development, suggesting that early childhood experiences play a critical role in forming adult personality. Though controversial, this theory emphasized the long-term psychological impact of early life. Beyond theory, Freud's ideas gave rise to psychoanalysis as a therapeutic practice. Through structured dialogue, dream analysis, and exploration of unconscious patterns, Freud believed individuals could gain insight into their inner conflicts and gradually relieve psychological suffering. This approach became the foundation for modern talk therapy and influenced countless psychological schools that followed. One of Freud's most debated ideas was the Oedipus complex, which described unconscious emotional dynamics within the family. While heavily criticized and reinterpreted over time, this concept forced psychologists to confront the emotional complexity of early development. Freud also introduced the opposing forces of eros and thanatos, representing the drives toward life and destruction. These instincts, he argued, constantly interact within the human psyche. Despite his immense influence, Freud's work has faced substantial criticism. Many scholars argue that his theories lack scientific testability and rely too heavily on interpretation. Others note that his ideas were shaped by the cultural norms of his era. However, even critics acknowledge that Freud transformed how humans think about the mind. Freud's impact extends far beyond psychology into literature, film, art, and cultural discourse. Concepts such as the unconscious, defense mechanisms, and inner conflict have become part of everyday language. More than a century later, Freud remains a symbol of intellectual courage. His work reminds us that the mind is not linear or simple, but fluid, conflicted, and deeply human. In exploring these hidden depths, Freud changed how humanity understands itself forever. As the modern world evolved, Freud's ideas became increasingly relevant. Industrialization, urban life, and social pressure created new forms of anxiety and inner conflict. Freud believed that modern humans often suffer not because of external threats, but because of unresolved inner tension. Civilization, in his view, requires individuals to suppress instinctual desires in order to function within society. This suppression, while necessary, produces psychological strain. Freud argued that much of human suffering comes from the conflict between natural impulses and social expectations. The more complex civilization becomes, the greater the demand for self-control. As a result, anxiety and guilt become common psychological experiences. Freud did not see mental discomfort as a flaw, but as a consequence of being human within a structured society. He suggested that many everyday behaviors are symbolic expressions of deeper mental processes. Humor, creativity, habits, and even mistakes reveal the underlying activity of the unconscious. A forgotten name, a sudden emotional reaction, or an unexpected dream may all carry meaning. For Freud, nothing in the mind happens by accident. This perspective invited people to observe themselves more closely. Instead of judging thoughts as good or bad, Freud encouraged curiosity. Why does a thought appear? Why does a feeling repeat? Why does the mind return to certain memories? These questions turn psychology inward and transformed self-reflection into a serious, intellectual pursuit. Freud's work encouraged individuals to accept complexity rather than seek simple explanations. The human mind, he argued, is layered, contradictory, and constantly in motion. Understanding oneself requires patience, honesty, and a willingness to face uncomfortable truths. This idea continues to resonate with those who seek meaning beneath the surface of everyday life. Beyond therapy and theory, Freud's influence reshaped creative expression. Writers, artists, and filmmakers found inspiration in his ideas about symbolism, dreams, and unconscious motivation. Literature began to explore inner monologues, fragmented thoughts, and emotional ambiguity. Characters were no longer defined solely by actions, but by hidden desires and internal struggles. Freud believed that creativity itself was a form of sublimation. Through art, individuals could transform unconscious impulses into socially acceptable expression. This process allowed inner tension to be released without destruction. Poetry, music, and visual art became pathways for the unconscious to speak. Surrealism, in particular, embraced Freud's fascination with dreams and free association. Artists sought to bypass rational control and allow imagery to emerge spontaneously. This mirrored Freud's belief that truth often appears when conscious control is relaxed. In this sense, creativity and psychoanalysis shared a common goal, revealing what lies beneath awareness. Freud also changed how stories were told. Narratives became less linear, more psychological. Time, memory, and perception blended together. The inner world gained equal importance to external events. This shift deeply influenced modern storytelling and continues to shape contemporary media. Through culture, Freud's ideas reached audiences far beyond academic psychology. His language became symbolic rather than technical. The unconscious became a metaphor for depth, mystery, and emotional truth. In this way, Freud transformed not only science, but imagination itself. In the present age, where information moves fast and attention is fragmented, Freud's ideas offer a counterbalance. He reminds us to slow down and listen inward. While technology accelerates external stimulation, the unconscious continues to operate quietly beneath awareness. Anxiety, identity confusion, and emotional exhaustion remain deeply psychological experiences. Freud's work invites modern individuals to question the origin of their thoughts and feelings. Are desires chosen or inherited? Are fears rational or symbolic? Are identities stable or shaped by hidden forces? These questions remain as relevant now as they were a century ago. Although psychology has evolved and many of Freud's theories have been revised, his central insight endures. The mind is not fully transparent to itself. Self-knowledge is a process, not a destination. Understanding requires exploration, not denial. Freud did not offer comfort in simplicity. Instead, he offered honesty. He accepted contradiction as part of human nature. Love and aggression, creation and destruction, reason and desire coexist within the same mind. This tension does not weaken humanity, it defines it. In the flow of thought, Freud taught us to listen rather than suppress, to observe rather than judge, to explore rather than escape. The human mind, like a stream, never truly stops moving. And in following that stream, Freud left behind a legacy not of certainty, but of deeper awareness, one that continues to invite reflection, curiosity, and understanding across generations. As Freud's ideas continue to echo through time, they invite a deeper form of listening, not only to others, but to ourselves. In a world that constantly demands clarity, speed, and certainty, Freud reminds us that the human mind is rarely clear, rarely fast, and never fully certain. Thoughts overlap, emotions contradict, and meaning often hides behind symbols rather than statements. Freud did not believe that understanding the mind meant controlling it. Instead, he believed it meant acknowledging its movement. The mind shifts, resists, forgets, returns, and repeats. Patterns emerge not because we choose them, but because something unresolved asks to be seen. In this sense, self-knowledge is not about perfection, but about awareness. This perspective changes how we relate to our inner life. Feelings are no longer enemies to suppress, but signals to explore. Memories are not static records, but living impressions shaped by emotion. Even silence becomes meaningful. Freud taught that what we avoid thinking about often holds the greatest influence over us. In modern life, where identity is curated and emotions are filtered, Freud's work feels almost radical. He spoke openly about desire, fear, guilt, and conflict, elements many prefer to hide. Yet he understood that ignoring them does not bring peace. Only recognition creates movement. Only awareness creates choice. Freud's legacy is not a fixed doctrine. It is an invitation to question motives, to observe reactions, and to notice repetition. It asks us to sit with discomfort long enough to understand it, to accept that the mind is layered, unfinished, and deeply human. In the end, Freud did not give humanity easy answers. He gave it a mirror that reflects complexity instead of simplicity. In following the flow of thought, he showed that the mind is not a straight path.